In just hours, a federal judge will hold a hearing about that Maryland man we were telling you about earlier, mistakenly deported to a mega prison in El Salvador. The case of Kilmore Abrego Garcia coming up repeatedly in that high-stakes meeting yesterday between President Trump and Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele. Bukele making it clear he has no plans to send Abrego Garcia back to the U.S., and there's no evidence that the U.S. has made any efforts to get him released, despite numerous court orders to do just that. So joining me now is Tricia McLaughlin, Assistant Secretary for Public Affairs at the Department of Homeland Security. Tricia, welcome in. It is good to have you. Thank you for being here. I want to start with the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court has upheld that the administration should, quote, facilitate and effectuate Abrego Garcia's return. And the president on Friday said this. I want to put it up on your screen. If the Supreme Court said bring somebody back, I would do it. And he goes on to say, I have great respect for the Supreme Court. So why hasn't the government done what the Supreme Court has asked them to do?
Well, I'm going to defer to the Department of Justice on this matter, but I think what really matters to Americans is that this MS-13 gang member, who unfortunately, Jay, you and a lot of your colleagues have called a Maryland man, when in reality
I'm going to stop
he's an
you there.
MS-13
What is your evidence,
member.
Tricia? Wait, I got to stop you there. What's your evidence that he's in MS-13?
Well, there's actually been two separate immigration judges, Jay, who have confirmed and ruled that he is a member of MS-13.
Well,
that, as well as we have intelligence,
it was brought up in deportation
sure did,
proceedings.
Jay.
But what's the evidence that was brought up in those deportation proceedings that he's in MS-13?
Jay. I can do this all day, Jay. He is a member of MS-13. I don't think you'd want to be his neighbor, Jay. I sure wouldn't, and I don't think many Americans watching would want to be this individual's neighbor. He's been involved in human trafficking. He's been involved in labor trafficking, and he should not be in this country. So whether he's in an El Salvadorian jail or a U.S. detention facility, I am so very glad, as are millions of Americans, that he is off of U.S. streets. Because remember, Jay, who is MS-13? They maim, they rape. They kill Americans for sport, and the American people are done with it. They said so on November 5th, 2024.
We should point out that in those immigration proceedings, there's not evidence that he was, as you said, involved in trafficking and things of that nature. But I want to ask you, Tricia, because...
And as I said, there's intelligence, Jay.
Putting aside the MS-13
our
of it all.
national security documents every time a terrorist denies that they are a terrorist. That would be insane.
Tricia, but the Supreme Court has said that his return is to be facilitated. Why hasn't the government then complied with that directive?
Again, Jay, I defer you to the DOJ on the case of what the Supreme Court actually announced.
But the Department of Homeland Security sent him.
You and I both watched the Oval Office yesterday, where President Bukele said he was not planning on returning this terrorist to the U.S. soil. He is now, as much as you want to deny it, Jay, this guy was in our country illegally. He's an El Salvadorian citizen, and President Bukele gets to decide what to do with him.
So 2 weeks ago in open court, the government's own attorney, and you know this, admitted that he was sent there, Abrego Garcia was sent there by mistake, and he should not have been removed specifically to El Salvador and potentially even to that prison. Is it the government's position now, and are you saying now that he was supposed to be sent there and he should be there?
Jay, I think we should explain to viewers watching why this clerical error occurred in the first place. It's because this MS-13 gang member was given protective orders because there are rival gangs in El Salvador that might go after him if he was sent there. So he could have been sent to Egypt, Nicaragua, Honduras, you named it. He just couldn't go to El Salvador. So the bottom line, I think it almost bolsters the government's case that this is a member of MS-13. Again, Jay, I tell you, what the media really should be caring about, what really matters is these victims of Tren de Aragua and MS-13, like this Maryland man. It's horrible what's happened to these individuals. And, you know, it's kind of sad. The number of inquiries from the media I get every single day, and yet not one of them is about the American victims of these individuals. Instead, it's just doing the bidding of these gang members.
So wait, I just want to back up, because you did say that there was a clerical error involved in getting him to that facility, correct? Right. He is there because of a clerical error? Yeah, he should have been sent to a detention center in Mexico, Nicaragua, Egypt, really anywhere in the country, but he couldn't go to El Salvador because he had a rival gang. But we've heard from administration officials who say that there was no clerical error. Like Stephen Miller has said that there was no clerical error, that he is supposed to be where he is.
Again, I would defer to you, the DOJ. He should either be in a U.S. detention facility or in that El Salvadorian jail.
So I want to move on here because, as the president said, and you heard him say this idea of sending "quote unquote" homegrowns to El Salvador, is the administration working through the legalities of that? Is that something that could potentially become a new policy, to send American citizens or others who are in the country legally but convicted of a crime to that prison in El Salvador?
Well, Jay, unfortunately, because of the Biden administration, which allowed 10 to 15 million people to illegally enter this country in the last 4 years, including hundreds of thousands, if not millions of criminal aliens, the Department of Homeland Security, including Secretary Muir, laser focused on getting these criminal aliens, like that Maryland man, like that MS-13 member, out of our country. That's our very first priority.
So wait, is it an upcoming potential policy to send American citizens or those with proper immigration documents to that facility or not?
I don't get in front of the president, but I will reiterate the fact that President Biden allowed 10 to 15 million people illegally to enter this country. And that is why we are seeing sky-high poll numbers on mass deportation efforts under Secretary Nunn and under President Trump.
I want to switch gears here again one more time to something that I've seen you discuss a lot, which is these several international students, as you know, who have had their visas or their green cards revoked after being involved in protests or demonstrations. In one case, a student wrote, as I understand it, a pro-Palestinian op-ed in her student newspaper, and she believes that's why she was asked to leave the country. Is this a policy of this administration now to remove people who are here legally because the administration disagrees with their speech?
Oh, absolutely not, Jay. This is not a free speech issue. This is an issue that if you are here on a green card or a visa, that is a privilege, not a right. And if you are glorifying terrorists, if you are pushing pro-Hamas or pro-terrorist propaganda, if you're talking about relishing the killing of Americans or Jews,
isn't that exactly what a speech issue is then? You're discussing a speech issue. If you are harassing
Jews, if you are harassing Jews, if you are taking over buildings in college campuses, if you are defacing private property, if you are, again, harassing any of your fellow students, that's not a free speech issue. That is completely a issue that you should not be in the U.S. And actually, you clearly hate America, so you should go home and you should self-deport now. And we've actually unleashed a CBP Home app so that people can easily and freely do this.
But again, so what you're saying is your argument that it's not the speech but the conduct that's resulting in these administration actions? I'm just trying to follow what it is that you're saying.
Jay, if you are here in this country on a visa or a green card, that is a privilege, not a right. In doing so, you should act as the guest that you are. And that includes not advocating for the killing of Americans, not advocating for the killing of Jews. That's pretty basic common sense security. And I think something that almost every American will agree with.
And these individuals who you've revoked the green card of, it's your argument that they've done that? Is that correct?
Absolutely.
I want to go back to Mr. Abrego Garcia just in 1 second here, because there's a question I didn't ask you, which is, who, in your understanding, is responsible for complying with this order from the Supreme Court to facilitate his return from El Salvador? Is it the government or is it El Salvador?
Jay, I'm not a lawyer, so I think you might want to talk to someone from the Department of Justice. The bottom line here is that
but you represent the department that sent him there.
Who has been... Yes, and I'm not a lawyer and I'm not at the Department of Justice. The bottom line is that this individual under the Department of Homeland Security, he is a threat to public safety. He was involved in human trafficking, involved in labor trafficking, and he should not be on U.S. streets. So if you and your network are advocating for him to be in a U.S. detention facility, fine. But it is, again, pretty crazy that you're so worried about this gang member and a lot less worried about his victims.
Tricia McLaughlin, thank you as always for your time on this Tuesday afternoon.